Hi all, welcome to part 6 of our Dapt mini-series. In today's session we're going to be looking at My Analytics. I think this is something that gets overlooked by a lot of people and people aren't aware of it, so it's going to be great to show you some of these really useful features and help you work more effectively. So a little bit about us. We're a Microsoft Gold partner consulting company focusing on productivity in the modern workspace. Between Steve and myself, we've got over 20 years combined experience as consultants in SharePoint and Microsoft 365. If you have any questions about anything you've seen in this session or some of the other sessions we've put together, feel free to get in touch. We've got a slide at the end of this presentation outlining the rest of the sessions available. So yeah, stay tuned to the end, and we'll show you what's coming up. Okay, over to Steve.
Cheers, Dan. Okay, so for today's session, as Dan's kind of already mentioned, we're really excited to talk about this topic. We've spent the last few days really exploring My Analytics and Viva Insights in a bit more depth, and we found some really useful practices that we're even going to employ sort of within Dapt as well. So I think there's going to be some really sort of high value stuff that you'll get out of today's session. But for the agenda today, let's have a quick look at what we're going to cover. So first off, we're going to have a look at just an intro to My Analytics and also how that's sort of tying in with Viva Insights as well. So My Analytics gives you those data-driven insights into how you work, who you work with, and your connections to really sort of drive productivity and to avoid things such as burnout. Again, we'll look at some of the lesser known settings. So we've also got things with an Outlook, so the analytics or insights added with an Outlook that we can use as well. So that's something that's sort of worthwhile to consider. We'll also then be looking at Viva Insights, so going into Microsoft Teams and sort of some of the features that are in there. Some of them cross over with My Analytics to a point, but it really brings in sort of a new experience, all of that sort of Microsoft Teams first approach that Microsoft are going for. Now, all of this stuff is great, but without adoption, people won't uptake it. So we'll look at some of the adoption techniques you can employ as well as an individual, but also as a team, and some of the stuff that we do at Dapt to help organizations with sort of workplace analytics. And we'll, again, as usual, we'll end with the top tips. So again, just reiterating on some of the sessions, sort of insights that we found out today. Okay, so as we normally get into, let's have a look at the demo, because this is what it's all about. I shall just share my screen quickly with you all. Okay, so Microsoft have found, and as lots of organizations have done through studies, is that especially with lockdown, people are finding it harder to stay positive. They're sort of getting burnt out. With the massive increase of amounts of time you're spending on things such as Microsoft Teams meetings, the instant chat that you're going to sort of experience as well, homeschooling, isolation, distractions at home, that whole work-life balance is kind of sort of been put into chaos in a little way. So Microsoft will release My Analytics and Viva Insights to really help people manage that time, to refocus and to really sort of improve their well-being at work. So the first thing, as mentioned, that we're going to be looking at today is the My Analytics dashboard. So this is my actual My Analytics dashboard. I've used our actual live environment for this purely from a point of view of it's got the data in there. So this just wouldn't work on a demo tenant. So you're actually going to see sort of firsthand my actual analytics. Some of my work habits, some are bad, some are good, but we'll start to go through those in today's session. So from the home screen, there are some licensing things just to consider. So My Analytics does come as standard with E5 and E3, but to get the full stack, you may need to buy the full version as an add-on. And with the full version, you get a few things such as email analytics. So that gives you things such as email read rates and open rates. You also get the option to do things such as shorter meetings, planning time away, and also delay delivery, which is quite useful. I'll talk about that in a second. So first off, as usual, we start to have a look at some of the config settings that we can do. So if I just click on config settings down the bottom here, you can see I can sort of set my work week. So this allows me to really dictate the times or the hours that I like to work. Now this could be that I maybe sort of do some additional work at the weekends if I wanted to, but Monday to Friday 9 to 5:30 is our standard, so I make sure that's sort of put into there as well. I can also do things such as create my focus plan. So my focus plan really allows me to block time out automatically into my calendar to make sure I've got time to focus on the work I need to get done. So I'll actually click on this now, and what that'll do is it'll take me to the focus tab, and I can click on here and say get started. So I'm just going to click on to get started, and it'll ask me how much time I would like to schedule each day. So would I like to schedule an hour for myself or 2 hours each day? And what this will do is it will block time out in my calendar and set me as busy, and also do a few other nice things in Microsoft Teams too. So I'll just click on to next. It will also ask me when I would like to set that focus time. So again, where's most popular, morning, afternoon, depending on your preference and when you like to really knuckle down. Some people like to do all of their calls and collaboration in the morning. Some people like to save that until sort of the afternoon and get sort of that key bits of work out of the way. I actually prefer the morning myself. I like to focus on yesterday's tasks, for example, that morning, catch up on any emails that I need to just really do there as well. So I'm just going to leave that as in the morning. I've also got the option to silence Teams notifications during this time. So this will essentially put my status to do not disturb. And if any of my colleagues are trying to get in touch with me, they will still be able to send me a chat message and all of that sort of great stuff, but it just won't pop up with notifications. So I'm not going to be distracted by sort of that general chit chat or those light questions that can just wait really. So one of the big things that we found with this is that during the day when you're Microsoft Teams, the ease of access to your time has increased massively. So anyone can at any point just drop me a chat message, and it really can distract me from my work, sort of unfocus myself. And then when I need to go back into what I was doing, it takes me a bit of time to reset and then to get back into that. So this is a really useful way to block that out. So I'm just going to click on looks good there, and then I can just click OK to that. And what it's going to do is it's going to go out and book some focus time for me over the next 2 weeks. So this is going to really do that for me quite nicely. I'm actually on annual leave next week, so it's not had to worry about that for me there because that's really in my calendar. But for this week, it's going to book some time out for Thursday and Friday. So that's all good. That's great. It's all set up and now ready to do. I can then go to settings if I want to continue to edit that if I need to. So we can see here that this is all now set up. I can change some of these settings back in this plan configuration area. So if I ever wanted to change that from 2 hours to 4, if I wanted to, I could do that morning to afternoon. I can also set when not to schedule focus time before. So I may say actually don't try and book any time at 9 o'clock because I might have specific meetings in there that I want to do. And if I want to silence Teams notifications, so I can always come and change that as I need to. Okay, so looking at some of the other settings we have within My Analytics. So one of the ones I mentioned is this delay delivery. So this is currently disabled for myself. Now, what this feature does is it will look at my co-workers' working week. So if we go back up here, what they set within here, and it will make sure that if I try and send them an email outside of that time, it's not going to send it until they're back in the office. Now, this again is something that could be quite useful. As managers, you're often sort of, maybe working that little bit later, sometimes picking things up as emails come in, and you can quite easily get into the habit of just dropping an email. And even though you're not expecting your colleagues to read that until, say, the next day, with the accessibility of devices such as mobile phones and having our work email on mobile phones, the ability to quickly jump in to anything that we want really, that could actually be a distraction for them when they're outside of working hours, and sort of you stop them from being unable to switch off. So this is quite a nice way that we can actually turn that on, and I can set that delay delivery. And now what will happen is that will stop my emails if I'm sending them to my work colleagues outside of business hours from being sent until they're sort of back in the office. So again, a really nice way just to enable that and to take that thought away from myself of having to think, actually, I maybe shouldn't message Dan and Jack after 5:30 because they may be having family time and all of that sort of great stuff. Lastly, on the settings page, one of the other things that we can do is look at the team settings. So this is where I will be able to sort of edit my team. You'll see this if you are a manager as well. So within your Active Directory, if you've been assigned a direct report. So I've changed a few of the config settings just there for this example, but I can actually go and edit my team, and I can change who's in my team at any point should I want to. So I can change these people or remove them, add people as well. So it may not be that I have direct reports, but it could be that I work in a team with people who may be a dotted line to myself that I want to add into here as well. So I can actually manage that from there as well. Okay, so jumping back to the home page, the homepage gives me that sort of overview when I first start, so that sort of that dashboard information. So it'll always look at the last 4 weeks of data, so I'm always going to look at that, and it really splits everything down into 4 key areas. So focus, which is making sure I've got enough time for myself to focus on my day-to-day working activities. Well-being, so ensuring that I avoid overworking, burnout, working outside of working hours as I need to, all of that sort of great stuff. My network, so making sure that I'm actively staying in touch with my team and my external network as well, making sure I'm booking in time. That could be with partners, clients, and whatever it needs to be. And also collaboration. So could the time that I'm spending working with others be more productive? Are we having meetings that don't have an agenda? Are we sort of just doing too many ad hoc calls? All of this sort of great stuff is really, really useful, even to the point of, for example, if I'm working closely with someone, we're always joining the same meeting together. Maybe that's a client meeting. Could that person maybe take lead on that meeting and free up some of my time and vice versa? Does everyone need to be within that meeting? So it's really quite a powerful piece of insights in there as well. Right down the bottom, I've also got some productivity insights. So again, just looking at those 4 pillars of analytics, I can see some available focus time, and it says here, the time I have available to focus has been stable at around 67%. So 2/3 of my day I have free time to focus on, about 30%, or for a third of my day I'm in meetings and doing active collaboration. Also shows me my quiet hours document. So my quiet hours are the time outside of my working hours. So I can also see here that I've worked on 6 cloud documents outside of my working hours. So again, that can be very flexible. It may be that you'll see some of this stuff, for example, as I mentioned, with things like childcare. If I need to take some time out during the day, I may pick up some stuff in the evening as I need to, but that's the flexibility we now have. But it's just, again, important to know that we've got that there. Again, I've also got here sort of that divide and conquer meeting. So last week I spent 3.8 hours in meetings with Daniel Fowl. Could we maybe share some of those meetings so we don't need to be in them together? That's another option that we can discuss. If we're looking at client meetings where we both need to present because we've got different skill sets, great. If we're joining meetings where actually one of us can take that and then catch up with notes or whatever that may be, then maybe that's a better option. So Dan can maybe give me a summary of what that hour-long meeting was rather than me and him joining that hour meeting. So we can get some really great insights from that as well. Okay, so you've also got some tours and videos just to help you learn and understand this as well. But really what this is all about is just helping me to discover my habits and work smarter. So let's have a look at focus time for now. So focus is really my focus plan. Again, as I've set this up earlier, you can see that we've got this all here. I've just got started, so I've just booked in my focus time. This is all set for me to go. I can also have a look at my uninterrupted time, my interrupted time, or collaboration time, as we may call it, just in terms of what my weekly averages are. So I can see here it's about 2/3 to 1/3 consistently across each week, actually, that I'm spending time collaborating and then having focus. And that's, I would say for myself, quite a good balance. I do need to collaborate. I need to have those meetings. That will be with clients and with my team members. But I also need to make sure I've got the time outside of those to make sure I get the work done. So the actions off the back of those meetings, I can actually produce the content that I need to do. Over on the right hand side, I also get some suggestions as well. So again, the same there that it's been stable at around 67%. And also, am I distracted by emails? So during working hours, you read over half of your emails within 30 minutes of receiving them. So do I need to set some time aside for emails? Again, it depends on which department I may work in. For example, if you're working in sales, you probably want to read emails if they come in from a client as soon as possible. If I'm just working in sort of the back office, I can maybe get on with my work in a bit more of an easy way and maybe set some time aside to review those emails and say, actually, I'm going to close my Outlook off, not look at it, and then just set the time aside each day just to focus on that, so I'm not distracted by emails coming in as I'm working. So again, there's some useful tips and suggestions there that we can use to really understand those insights and build that bigger picture of how I work. So let's have a look at Wellbeing next. So Wellbeing shows me really, am I able to disconnect and recharge from the day-to-day working? So how many days, and this is the quiet days, so days where I don't do any significant work outside of my working hours, so 9 to 5:30. So that's our sort of maybe general working hours that we may do. And again, with flexibility and flexible working, not everyone's going to work at those rigid times. So take this with a pinch of salt is what I can say. Is, you may start at 8:30 if you need to finish your 4 one day, just because of certain things you may have going on. That will obviously impact your quiet time, but take this with that pinch of salt and really just understand what it is that you're doing around. But try and obviously keep that quiet time there. Really useful if you're working in sort of an office operations and you'll sort of have those dedicated time slots. You may want to actually make sure you're not overworking, just to avoid burnout. What are my disruptions during my quiet hours as well? Well, I can see that of that time, 50% are sort of meetings that may overrun. They may start in the morning if we need to catch up on some urgent actions. Also emails. Checking emails outside of working hours, again, is something that I am guilty of, and I know many people are as well. And then 2% of chats and calls. So again, I'm not really being too distracted with that type of collaboration. So in terms of my team getting in touch with me, it's really just mainly around sort of the emails that I'm having within there. So again, that's the main focus of that area within there too. Again, here I can see that last week I worked on 6 cloud documents outside of those working hours. So again, that could just be picking up work. I can manage that myself depending on making sure my own personal work-life balance is there, but it just gives me those insights to really understand that as well. If I jump over to network, so network is how I'm growing my business network, so both with my team members and also with sort of people outside of that. And it'll show me how much time I've spent with those people. And I can flick this between map view or list view to find that sort of stuff. But I can see my top collaborators that are within here, for example. So for example, my core team, Lars, Sindra as well, and then some of the other external collaborators I have within there too. And I can see that I've got 34 active people that I'm working with, but over the course of since we've started or I've started this, I've got 141 people that I chat to or meet on a relatively regular basis. But these guys are the ones that I actively do a lot more work with. Again, it gives me that suggestion of divide and conquer. Last week, Dan and I spent 3.8 hours in meetings. That's an option for us to maybe have that discussion to say maybe we can look at splitting some of that stuff if we need to through there. I can also see here I've got some new collaborators. So I can see I've got Edgia from Valo Intranet. So I may want to add her as a favorite to my favorites board down here. This could just be a nice way for me to make sure I keep regular contact in with Edgia on a regular basis. So I can match my important contacts down here. I might want to go down and say do that. So I'll mark her as important. And I can see based on all of this information, how much time and when I last contacted them. So if I look at Michael from Orchestra, one of our partners, I can see that I've not spoke to Michael through my sort of tenant in over a month. Now, as partners, we jump onto different tenants with different accounts. So I do know that I have spoke with Michael in different ways. But again, this is really just useful insights for me to have there to say, actually, just as a gentle reminder, you may want to get in touch with Michael again, just to talk about how things are going at Orchestra, what opportunities we're sort of currently discussing, all of those sort of great things I can put into there as well. So I get some really good insights around that. I'm just going to jump over to collaboration next. So this is kind of almost one of the last panels in my analytics. But with collaboration, I can really see what percentage of time in my last 4 weeks what have I been doing during my working hours. So things like how much time have I been spending in meetings, looking at my meeting habits, all of that sort of great stuff as well. So again, we're still getting those stats pulling through to here. So that 2/3, 1/3 split between collaboration and focus time. Within here, I can see how much time of that 34% I'm spending doing certain things. So 16% of that collaboration time is in meetings. 10% of that time is doing chats, calls, talking through Microsoft Teams chat, for example, or calls on phones. I can also see 8% of that time is active email collaboration as well. So about a 2/3, 1/3 split there for me. If I look at my meeting habits, I can also see out of the 44 meetings that I've organised or attended in the last 4 weeks, what are the most common types. So I can see that I've got high attendance meetings. So that's where everyone who's invited to those meetings sort of turns up. I can also see that most of my meetings have no emails or chats during the meeting. So when I'm in a meeting with those people, I'm not receiving emails or I'm not receiving chat messages through from other people in those meetings. That's quite high, but I'm still getting a few elements there. So maybe that's something to discuss with my team, just to mention, say maybe we can reduce that a bit by checking someone's status on Microsoft Teams before we drop them a chat message. I can also see here if I have overlap with other meetings. So this is maybe myself getting double booked on things. Now, some of these may be internal meetings that I've booked in that I can sort of leave. But again, it just reminds me to tidy up my calendar effectively, or move those meetings that I had booked out and make sure they're cancelled or moved to another time. Most of my meetings and the invitations that I send have at least 1 day's notice. Some of them I do send on the same day. That's going to happen, but that's pretty high. So I'm quite happy there that I'm actively making sure meetings are booked in with enough time for people to be able to prepare and do all of that sort of stuff. Of my meetings, am I joining on time? 95% yes. Sometimes run a little bit late, but that's great. And again, 95% during working hours. So only very few meetings that I've had to have maybe potentially outside of those working hours that I've done. But again, that's for me to manage and just to really have those insights on that. Also with my meetings, am I sending my meetings with those Skype or Teams links? Yep, 100%. All of my meetings that I'm sending out are based on Microsoft Teams, so that's great. I'm making sure I'm doing that as well. And again, I can review my communication habits down here at the very bottom. So I can see here that I've sent 106 and read 600 emails. I've had 188 chats and calls in the last 4 weeks. I can also see what times certain things are happening. So as we sort of saw those insights earlier in terms of when I'm reading my emails, sometimes that could be sort of when I wake up, just checking a few urgent ones that come through. But the main collaboration time sort of for me at emails starts around this 9-10 o'clock time. So maybe I could use that insights and use that focus time to say, actually, I'm going to focus on those emails at that time, and maybe free up some time here to really focus on the collaboration and other elements. So I can maybe move some of this stuff into say, actually, let me just focus on my emails around this time, because that's when I seem to be doing the most of that type of activity. So I can use those insights to plan that focus time and to really sort of improve the way that I work. Again, on the right hand side here, we've got some various different tips. So again, really useful tips coming through. Co-workers, making sure they can prepare for meetings, making sure the time of meetings are effective, and also looking at research. And then again, if I look into my leadership tab, if I'm a manager, I can make sure that I'm booking one-to-one time with my colleagues. So I can see I've got some one-to-one time with Daniel today, but I don't have any one-to-one time booked in with Jack. So I might want to go and do that and get some time booked in with him. Now, I know that I talk with Jack and Daniel in sort of team meetings all the time, but that's slightly different to a one-to-one. So I want to have some focused time with Jack, just one-on-one, where we can talk about how he's getting on, any concerns that he has, that sort of manager stuff that I need to do. I can actually put that through into there as well. So again, that's really important that we get those sort of meetings booked in. And this is not ad hoc calls. This will be my actual meetings that I book in with him as well. Lastly, the quiet hours impact. So this is what's my impact on quiet hours with my team. So am I sending emails outside of the working hours to team members, and then again, maybe not expecting them to read it, but is it going to impact their work-life balance? So I can see here that 2 of my team members over the past 4 weeks have received emails from me, or potentially a call from me, that's been outside of that 9 to 5:30. Now, again, I can manage that. So I can speak to, say, for example, Dan, who runs Dapt, or co-founders Dapt with me, and we run it together, that we may have to have those occasional calls outside of work hours. But I really want to make sure that I'm not impacting the rest of my team. So again, it's really useful insights there just to make sure that I'm managing that effectively. Okay, so that's my analytics. So that's sort of a quick overview of how that all works and some of the great insights we can get from there. I'll quickly also jump across to Viva Insights. So Viva Insights will be an app down the side here. I can actually go back to home, and what I'll get here is some great sort of tips and tricks on how to manage my time as well. So it'll give me any calendar information that I've got coming through here. I can also track how I'm feeling and review my reflection history over time. So I'm feeling pretty happy over the time, but I can also build up a habit of building my emotional awareness. So I can actually set that reminder into my calendar too. I can also send praise to colleagues, so I can say thanks to Daniel, for example, for doing some great work, and I can do that as a one-to-one chat or post that into a team as well if I want to, and I can also preview that message as and when I need to. And again, setting reminders to make sure I say congratulations to my team for their good efforts all the time. So it could be at the end of each week, I make sure I send some praise to my team through Microsoft Teams. So again, let's set those reminders there. We've also got things such as Headspace. So this is where I can do things such as meditation. So again, I can look at those different areas there and set the time aside to manage that. I can also look here and look at sort of that sort of top actions for today. So maybe catching up with Nikita, looking to protect some time in my calendar, but I think that's looking pretty busy at the moment, or just picking up some Microsoft to-do tasks as well, so I can maybe review those tasks and make sure that when I finish work to pick up the new school uniforms for the start of the new school day. At the top, we've also got some other areas as well. So talking about that one-to-one time, I can actually schedule that one-to-one time through here, through the stay connected. And with my protect time as well, I can select my focus time as well, but we can manage that through my analytics. But one of the last things I want to show you really is about this virtual commute. So what can I do at the end of the day to really make sure that I'm taking that time to recap on the day's activities and spend some time focusing. So I'm just going to have a look at the virtual commute. Again, I can remind to pick some school uniforms up on the way back. I can say, yep, actually, I do need to make sure I do that today. So I'm going to click that's going to be done. Great. Let's go have a look at what the next action is for today. What events should I have a look at? So here I can see that I'm going to have some catch-ups. I also need to pop into London for a lunch meeting as well, but I'm pretty happy with all of that sort of stuff, so I'm just going to go to next to that. I can also again capture how I'm feeling today, so I'm feeling very pleasant, and it's given me some nice tips there to say I'm awesome and I'm doing well. And then I can close that out today with some Headspace activities in there as well. So once that's done, I can do that and then just enjoy the rest of my day. So really sort of useful stuff there. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the top tips. So we're talking around a bit of adoption as well. So one of the things I just want to recap on really is to make sure that with all of this great stuff that it is adopted, and how can I manage and implement these best practices effectively. So the first one really is to diagnose the issue. So review my analytics and to diagnose what the issue is. Am I feeling burnt out? Am I finding that I'm having to work late and it's impacting my work-life balance? Am I finding that I can't focus during the working day? So identify that issue, use my analytics to help with that as well. Once I've identified that, I can then set my goal. So I'm going to set my goal to gain more clarity in what my collaboration or well-being problem is, and I can use my analytics again to help me sort of set those goals and use those features that we've seen today. Then it's really about developing those new habits, so putting things into practice and making sure you stick to them, and then sustaining that change as well, so sustaining those new behaviors. And from an adoption point of view, there are actually some really good things that we've explored and we can run it as a team. And sometimes with adoption, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to implement these habits and to sustain them by yourself. So you can actually run this type of thing as a team activity, and there's some great resources that we'll be posting out soon that cover all of this stuff as well. Okay, so just looking at time, I'm going to hand back to Dan. If you do have any questions, of course, feel free to reach out to us. But I hope you found that really insightful and useful, and can see the value of my analytics and Viva Insights going forward.
Okay, great. Thanks to everyone who was able to make today's session. Hope you found it useful as always. Some great tips there, and I think some really good things to help us kind of keep on top of the workload and make sure we're working effectively. As always, we love a bit of feedback, good or bad. So if you could scan the QR code at the bottom of the page, there's a quick form you can fill in, and at the end of this series of webinars, we'll be doing a prize draw. So definitely worth giving that a go. Okay, so next up we've got a webinar on building engagement and communities with Yammer. So there's a 2-week delay on this one, but this will be a great session. Yammer is a really useful tool and now integrates really nicely with Teams, so definitely worth joining that and taking a look to see what's possible there. This is obviously part of a bigger range of webinars. So you can see here we've still got quite a lot left to go. So have a look through the list. If there's any that interest you, feel free to join. If you have any questions about anything we've shown you here, get in touch. We're always happy to answer questions, whether that's via direct connection on email or via our social media platforms. But yeah, feel free to get in touch.